When I say the word bank, what's the first thing that comes into your mind? Maybe you think of a business that helps protect your money. Maybe you think of just the building where that bank is located. Or maybe you even think of a bank executive dressed in fine clothing. For the residents of Jackson Ward, where the Maggie L National Historic Site is located, they would think of all of those things and more. The 3 Black-owned banks in Jackson Ward in the early 1900s would serve as community landmarks. The bank executives would serve as community leaders. And those banks would do much more for the residents than just protect their money. I'm Ranger Mike with the Maggie L National Historic Site, and in this series of videos, we're going to discuss the 3 Black-owned banks in Jackson Ward during the early 1900s. The first bank we'll discuss is the True Reformers Bank. The Grand Fountain of the United Order of True Reformers was an organization founded by William Washington Brown. Originally a preacher from Alabama, he would try and join a temperance organization there called the Independent Order of the Good Templars. However, because he was African American, he was barred from joining that organization. So instead, he founded a segregated branch and began growing that organization. He would move between Alabama and Richmond growing that organization, but in 1880 would finally settle here in Jackson Ward. He would continue running the Grand Fountain of Virginia and traveling throughout the state, opening new branches and recruiting new members. But he set his sights higher. He knew that this organization could be something more than just a temperance organization. And so what he did is he transformed it into an insurance organization. He was the first to start an organization that would provide insurance through a black fraternal order in the United States. And so he would travel throughout Virginia and other states providing insurance to African American communities where they otherwise might not have access to it. And he would serve as a leader and an icon for many people through his efforts of transforming that organization into something greater. As the insurance program for the True Reformers prospered, they expanded, opening several new departments such as the Rosebud Department, which would serve as the department for children, teaching them values such as savings and thriftiness. They would expand their operations into a series of farms, hotels, and other businesses that they would operate throughout Jackson Ward, Virginia, and the United States, where they would expand into over 20 different states. But in 1888 would be their biggest venture yet. W. Brown and the leadership of the True Reformers would expand into new business opportunities. And the newest that they would expand into was banking. Because in 1888, they would open the first chartered black-owned bank. Not just here in Richmond, not just here in Virginia, but in the United States. And that bank would be a bank free of racial discrimination and would be available to anyone, not just organization members. And that bank would prosper. And as it prospered, the leadership decided that they needed to expand in terms of building. And what they would build is a 3-story True Reformers Hall, which was located right behind me here on 2nd Street in Jackson Ward. And that hall would not only house the bank, but would have an auditorium with 500 seats and would serve as a community landmark right here in Jackson Ward. The True Reformers Bank would demonstrate its prosperity to the citizens of Richmond during the financial panic of 1893. A financial panic that struck the nation, causing thousands of businesses and banks to go out of business. Here in Richmond, the True Reformers Bank was the only bank, black or white, that maintained full operations during the panic, not having to close for any reason. W. Brown would continue to lead the True Reformers until 1897 when he passes away. And after that, the organization would continue to operate here in Richmond, but would use a board of directors, having many community leaders leading that organization. And it would continue to serve as a beacon and a guiding light for other organizations that would come after it, showing how an organization can be something so much more. But for one of those leaders on the board, he saw some problems. And he decided to separate from that organization. And so John Mitchell Jr., the owner and editor of the Richmond Planet, a newspaper here in Richmond, decided to separate and form his own bank, the Mechanics Savings Bank, which will be the bank in our next video.